Hello, everyone, and welcome to One-on-One with H1. This is our industry webinar series. I'm Elizabeth Fennell, Director of Marketing for H1. Today's topic is 6 metrics for powering trials to reach vulnerable patient populations. Just a few housekeeping notes. Everyone should be muted. If you have a question, please type it in the chat. We would like for this to be an interactive session, so while I'll be posing questions, feel free to type them in the chat and we can get to them either during the live event, at the end, or follow up with you if it may be something we need to gather more information for. Today, we're in conversation with Adam Wyckoff. He's our Senior Director of Product Management for H1's Clinical Trial Intelligence product, Trial Landscape. Adam, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So today, we're going to talk about the value of data networks and powering clinical trials for success, as well as 6 metrics to consider for reaching vulnerable populations. We've talked a lot about data networks over the past 6 months at H1 and how they can provide insights and analyses into things like patient population selection criteria, site performance. So we're going to dig right in to ask Adam some questions because at H1, we want to help make sure the industry has all the stakeholders have access to the data they need to inform these trials. So Adam, can you tell us a quick overview of yourself and your experience and what you do at H1?
Sure. I'm Adam Wyckoff. I'm our Senior Director of Trial Landscape. I have been managing the product and since we were, in infancy over 2 years ago. I've been with the company now for over 2 years. I've been working in health technology and product management specifically for over 10 years and in clinical trials for the better part of 5 years. Prior to H1, I was also working in clinical trials on the patient recruitment side. So bringing my knowledge together from the patient recruitment side and now the site selection side kind of helps us to, grow our tool here at H1.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. Why is patient population such an important criteria with the new FDA guidance for diversity metrics? Why is this important?
Yeah, I mean, trials are all about patients, right? So I think that understanding patient population up to this point has really been about, do they meet my inclusion exclusion criteria? Are they the right set of breast cancer patients? Now it's much more than that. We're trying to get to a point where we can really build a more equitable future. We're looking at demographic factors like age and gender and race and socioeconomic status, education, as well as geographic location. And that kind of comes together to create a real picture. I think the most important piece there is that certain patient populations respond differently to medication, and you need to test that in your clinical trials. And we're happy to see the FDA take a bigger stance on this to help the safety and efficacy of patients around the world.
Yeah, it's definitely something H1 is helping to drive. I know it's been really important for us. And I think, like you said, all of those metrics are ones that we measure that give a better picture of the patient. And like you said, it's better for the end result of patient outcomes for those patients to get the drugs that they need who suffer from those conditions. When we think about site selection and site selection criteria, what kind of metrics or factors do you think should be considered?
Yeah, there's a number of key ones. I think, back to that patient population piece, I think that's where I would start. Do they have trial experience in the area that I'm working in? Do they have doctors that have run clinical trials in these areas in the past couple of years? Because medicine is changing really rapidly. If I did a diabetes study 5 years ago, it could be completely different now that you're leveraging continuous glucose monitors. Pieces like that really make a difference. So recent trial experience is something that I would understand. The infrastructure of what they have, as well as cost, that's always a big piece. So together that kind of formulates a really comprehensive picture. I think that the most important thing though is that H1 is really able to help you understand the patient population at a given indication level at a site. So what that really means is not just hey, what is the patient population or the race breakdown look for MD Anderson, but what does the race breakdown at MD Anderson look like for breast cancer? So that I can really understand does this site have the right patient population for me from a diversity perspective?
Yeah, so it can really get more prescriptive in those criteria. If that makes sense. When you think about health equity, and we talk about how site selection, patient population, how do you think that could help drive equity and trust for trials?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, when it comes to health equity, the problems are very real. They're very documented. When it comes to an area like multiple myeloma, 20% of the patients who are affected by multiple myeloma are African American, but only about 3% actually are on those clinical trials. So, here at H1, we're really just trying to think about all the different ways that we can help to understand how to get more patients enrolled. For us, it starts with a number of different criteria. I think one thing that I saw even back in my patient, recruitment days was diversity at the principal investigator level makes a huge difference. And so at H1, we're, understanding doctors' self-identified race as well as languages spoken, and then complementing that with their patient population so that you can answer questions like, how many doctors do I have that speak Spanish with a high Hispanic patient population? Little factors like that really help to make a huge difference on actually, closing these health equity gaps that are there. And I think it's really just about bringing all of these pieces together in one cohesive picture. So it's about, understanding the age, race, sex, income of a patient population, looking at that from a geographic landscape, and being able to drill down into the right sites and the right investigators.
Yeah, you made an important point, which is the correlation between the patient and the PI, right? And finding those commonalities and correlations. What are some things that maybe some of our, what are some correlations that you think we can draw within the trial landscape or within the platform that can kind of surface some good information for our sites?
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of the main correlations is how many doctors do I have that speak a given language, that have been principal investigators in this specific area that I work. So, the correlation between the site's overall patient population, which we can look at, and the doctor's patient population. I think that's one area. Another one is the referral network of that doctor. So understanding where they're actually receiving those patients from. And, if any of those other doctors can help out with the study. Because sometimes we get a lot of situations where, your number one choice is busy or can't actually do it. Where do we go from there if you've already found a good site that you want? So that's another correlation that you could make here. So referral networks and all of those other pieces, play into this as well.
Helping to know who the payers are in the area and the claims and things like that. I can see how that'd be valuable to paint that picture. Well, when we think about H1, how do we've talked a little bit about all the data elements. How do we put all of this together for our clients in a palatable, or kind of when they get the information, how they can make it actionable?
Yeah, so I think at H1, we focus on going from start to finish with these FDA diversity plans. We've worked on this a lot. So I think starting place is establish a baseline. So for your disease area, for your indication, at the more granular level of, maybe HER2 breast cancer or the exact, indication, inclusion, exclusion criteria that you're looking for. What does the baseline look like for race, sex, ethnicity, etc., so that you actually understand what good should look like on that study? And so, in the FDA guidance, we can help you to establish that baseline. We can help you to visualize where are those patient populations that actually can meet that criteria. Where are they being treated at what sites, and what investigators are driving those studies. And so I think that, from the start is establishing the baseline, then it goes to, visualizing that and drilling in on where I should go for my sites. We can help prompt you with all of the right sites to actually go forward, and then even more detailed, all of the right investigators and all of their contact information for you to reach out to them. So a comprehensive picture of those three together kind of is how H1 pulls it together for your FDA diversity planning. Oh, you're on mute here.
Apologies.
No worries.
How do you see the visualization? Is that a powerful tool for our customers when they're looking? It's one thing to look at data, but when you can actually visualize where that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, we understand the workflow of clinical operations. We understand the workflow for our contract research organization customers as well. And it's a lot about, there are huge teams working on these studies, in site feasibility and all that sort of stuff. And you need to explain why we're doing what we're doing, and why, we're picking a site in Texas, in this specific area of Texas versus a specific area in Georgia. And so visualizations and diversity heat mapping and, understanding claims heat mapping and all of those patient population pieces kind of are that visual avenue to, help their presentations, their bid defenses, all of these pieces to the puzzle to instill confidence in other folks that they're taking a data-driven approach. And so I think that is the way in which we look at it, is that they're visual aids that help you get to the final result, and help bring the entire site feasibility team along for the ride.
That's great. It's a great point. And who we work with at these organizations as well. You mentioned the CROs. Do you want to mention, it's kind of a newer venue for us. Do you want to talk about CROs a little bit?
Yeah, so contract research organizations are definitely like a big part of our customer base here at Trial Landscape. I think that they are some of my favorite customers to work with because they are running so many trials at the same time, and really love like the fast-paced aspect of being able to answer questions quickly for bid defenses, running different studies, and so I like working with them because I think that their needs are like sometimes 10x what some of our life sciences companies are. So it keeps things interesting, and then there's always more use cases for how to leverage the tool and how to get feedback for us from the product side of how to improve our product and make it better. So that feedback train kind of just goes even
keeps
fast.
us building better.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You mentioned indication level. Can you just give us an example of like what kind of indication level we could dive into if a customer asked?
Yeah, sure. So, we break down all of our, diversity and all of that information. It's basically linked and tokenized. So we're getting our information from different consumer sources. When it comes to diversity, we're linking that to a patient record. And then that patient record is being linked to their claims, which gets linked to doctors. It is confusing when you say it like that. When I show you a nice visual, it becomes very clear. But how that comes together for our indication diversity specifically is that all of that is at the at the claim record. So we can get down to a specific subset of breast cancer and their full patient population in the United States, and then you can break that out by which doctor is seeing that. So what that really does is, like, let's say you're seeing a general oncologist, right? And they treat lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, et cetera. You really want to understand, do they have diverse patients in lung cancer only? And so we are able to get to that level within one doctor, as well as at the site level, which I, talked a little bit about earlier, of that MD Anderson example of like, any facility, we're able to break down diversity at the indication level and even more granular than that. So, helps you with all of the, not only establishing baselines, but what we call the action plans for diversity and inclusion.
That's amazing. It can help them prepare those for the draft guidelines for FDA. And really, I think what it can do also is bring more trials to those community physicians.
Absolutely.
That are really treating the patients in those indication levels. That's super exciting.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the things that excites me the most. I've worked with a lot of community physicians and oncology, especially, and there's a lot of really good experience out there. And H1 helps you specifically with Trial Landscape to find those emerging investigators, those emerging sites in the community that have maybe only done 1 or 2 clinical trials, but have doctors with deep experience who came from other institutions and
Mhm.
have the right patient population and potentially have the right diverse patient population. So it's a great way to kind of like, connect us to the community in a more real way.
I think it's exciting too, because we know we can have an impact down the line of the product development cycle, where if we help them find diverse patients to run the trial, then maybe the drug will end up, helping more people. So that's
Absolutely.
exciting.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat. We are at our end of our questions, but I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to ask Adam. He's a wealth of knowledge, anything. We'll give people a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
What are you most excited about for trial landscape and clinical trials in this next year?
There's a lot to be excited about. I think that I'm really excited about the fact that we're building out our clinical trial performance data network. We're basically taking a lot of the, the gold of these life sciences companies and contract research organizations around, how well a site actually performed, how well they were able to stand up a site quickly and help our clinical operations teams connect that data in a real way to their analysis. And so right now that's been really fragmented in a lot of way. And through our clinical trial performance data network, we're able to tie all of that data together, really get into the nitty gritty of all of the metrics that help our clients feel more and more confident about maybe working with a net new site that you've never worked with. Maybe working with a principal investigator that you've never worked with, because you were able to receive data from our network around, what their first patient in timeline looked like, how their patient retention actually looked. And so that starts to get me really excited. I think it's all the new data sets that we're bringing in. We're looking to expand our diversity and inclusion offering ex-US. So that's also
very exciting. Yeah, we get asked about that a lot outside of, because it's not discussed as much, diversity outside of the United States, and the FDA has put these draft guidelines in place, but that's exciting to think about what we can do outside of the continental United States.
Absolutely. I think that that's going to be critical for us. We think of ourselves as like a leader in this space. And this is what we have to do. We have to keep pushing this forward. I think we've got a really good strategy around how to visualize some of those different data elements. And now it's about, bringing those all together, tying those to sites and patients around the globe, and kind of bringing that global diversity. Because in reality, trials aren't just done in the United States. Trials are global. And so the way that we are able to service our clients on a more holistic basis is really what I'm focused on and what I'm looking forward to in the next year.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point, because it's not always, diversity looks different in different places. Like the challenges may look different outside of the US, but I think the power of, not just the power of all that data, but the insights we're deriving out of them, that sometimes it's more challenging or time consuming for those people to do. And so that's really how we're empowering our clients.
Yeah, wonderful. Absolutely. I think that and diversity looks different in every place, I think is exactly right. And the data itself looks different in every place.
There's rules, governance on data looks different. So that's a big hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, and I think that it changes the way we look at visualizations. It changes the way that we look at the product direction. But I think that we have a really good unified strategy here going forward. And I'm very excited to kind of enact all of those pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
I think that that's really exciting. I also think that all that we're doing when it comes to generative AI is super exciting. We're looking at right now, our product is great, and we're able to help so many customers. But what excites me the most about generative AI is the fact that you could ask all of those questions that you're asking of our product in natural language, and it would spit back answers to you, which would lower the barrier of entry to actually scaling our tool across your organization. And so some of those things really excite me about, early prototypes of what we're looking for on that side. So very excited about what's to come at H1.
Innovation. Yeah, it's really exciting to see. It's pervading its way through all of healthcare. It's exciting to see what it's going to do in the next year.
Absolutely.
Well, we haven't had any questions. I'll give one more chance to submit, and then we will probably wrap it up. but we have loved this conversation with Adam. Adam, thank you for joining us.
No
And
problem.
we are going to take the summer off, but keep an eye out in August for our next one-on-one with H1. You're welcome to dive into more content that Adam discussed on our website, www.h1.co, or Adam would love to talk to you. If you're interested in how we can help, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Adam, and everyone have a good day.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Have a great day.
You too.